From China to America, the mysterious geographical code in The Classic of Mountains and Seas. The esoteric ancient book, The Classic of Mountains and Seas, is widely regarded as an important geographical work in ancient China. It is more likely to be a map depicting the ancient world. According to legend, this work originated from the time when Emperor Dayu was controlling floods in ancient China. Dayu, as an ancient heroic figure, the legend of his flood control is widely spread in Chinese history. His era is also considered an important starting point of Chinese civilization. It is said that it was during this period that the Shan Hai Jing began to be compiled, which gathered people's understanding and imagination of the natural world at that time. Over time, this work gradually took shape during the Warring States period through long-term oral transmission. It not only records China's mountains and rivers geography in detail, but also contains rich myths, legends and folk culture. It is a unique collection of geographical myths. The content of The Classic of Mountains and Seas is divided into several parts, including the famous Nanshan Jing, Northern Mountain Jing, and Zhongnan Jing, which describe in detail the mountains, rivers and geographical features of various parts of China. However, the most confusing and mysterious part is the Eastern Shan Jing. The area described in this part has been difficult to find in China for thousands of years of history, thus triggering countless speculations and explorations. Some scholars even suspect that the Dongshan Jing in The Classic of Mountains and Seas may describe a land far outside China. This mysterious description not only inspired the curiosity of ancient scholars, but also attracted widespread academic attention in modern times. Is the geographical information recorded in The Classic of Mountains and Seas just the imagination and myths of the ancients, or is it based on the true records of some unknown ancient civilization? This has become an important topic in the study of The Classic of Mountains and Seas. This program will lead the audience to explore the mystery of The Classic of Mountains and Seas. From ancient Chinese landscape myths to world geography that may be connected with it, to uncover the historical truth and cultural mysteries behind this ancient book. We will follow the footsteps of The Classic of Mountains and Seas and explore its ancient and modern significance, as well as its impact on our understanding of the ancient world. 1. The Mystery of Dongshan Jing in Shan Hai Jing. The Mystery of Dongshan Classic in The Classic of Mountains and Seas. Dongshan Jing occupies a special and mysterious position in The Classic of Mountains and Seas. This section describes a series of mountains and geographical features, but for thousands of years, scholars and explorers have been unable to find an actual geographical location that matches the vast land of China. This mystery has not only inspired countless studies and explorations, but also triggered extensive discussions about the scope of the description in The Classic of Mountains and Seas. Hu Yinglin's interpretation of The Classic of Mountains and Seas. Hu Yinglin, a scholar in the Ming Dynasty, had an in-depth study of the Book of Mountains and Seas. He put forward an important point of view, believing that the Jianxia described in the Book of Mountains and Seas was the world in a broad sense, and was not limited to the territory of China known at that time. Hu Yinglin believes that the geographical descriptions in The Classic of Mountains and Seas may cover the wider world, including distant lands that the Chinese had not set foot on at that time. This perspective provides a new perspective for understanding the Dongshan Jing in The Classic of Mountains and Seas, the connection between Dongshan Jing and the world in a broad sense. Hu Yinglin's insight provides a possible explanation for the mystery of Dongshan Jing. If Jianxia in The Classic of Mountains and Seas is understood as a broader world scope, then the area described in the Eastern Mountain Classic may not be located within the known territory of ancient China, but points to other continents far to the east. Or unknown territory. This understanding not only expands our understanding of the geographical description of The Classic of Mountains and Seas, but also opens up a new direction for the study of this ancient book. Explorations in modern archaeology and geography. With the development of modern archaeology and geography, research on the areas described in the Shan Hai Jing, in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, has gradually deepened. Scholars began to try to combine these ancient descriptions with modern geographical knowledge to explore its possible location. These studies not only involve in-depth interpretation of ancient documents, but also include the exploration of unknown geographical features around the world. The mysterious status of Shan Hai Jing, in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, and the broad world it describes are not only a challenge to ancient geographical knowledge, but also an inspiration for our understanding of history and the world. The interpretation and exploration of this part of the content will not only help us better understand the ancient book, the Classic of Mountains and Seas, but may also reveal more complex connections between the ancient world and the modern world. With further research in the future, we may be able to gradually uncover the historical truth behind the Shan Hai Jing. 2. The relationship between Shan Hai Jing and the North American continent. Groundbreaking research of the 20th century. In the 1960s, a series of studies initiated by American scholars began to focus on the Shan Hai Jing part of the Classic of Mountains and Seas. These scholars, through in-depth analysis of the geographical descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, and the worldview of ancient China, put forward a bold hypothesis. The geographical features described in the Eastern Mountain Classic, in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, may not be limited to Asia, but bear a striking resemblance to the mountains of the North American continent. This hypothesis immediately attracted widespread attention from the academic community and opened up a new interpretation of the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Comparative geographical research by American scholars. These American scholars began to compare the description of Shan Hai Jing, in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, with the actual geographical features of North America. They noticed that some descriptions could not find corresponding geographical entities in China, but there were surprising matches in the mountains of North America. For example, the directions of certain mountain ranges, the shapes of specific peaks, and even some special geographical phenomena recorded in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, were found to be incredibly consistent with the descriptions in the book after an in-depth study of the mountains in specific areas of North America. Correspondence between the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevada. It is particularly worth noting that the researchers found that there are significant similarities in geographical features between the descriptions of certain mountain ranges in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, and the Rocky Mountains and Sierra Nevada mountains in North America. For example, the characteristics of some of the peaks mentioned in the book are very similar to specific peaks in the Rocky Mountains, including their height, shape, and even the surrounding hydrogeological environment. Explore the geographical codes in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. These studies not only provide new explanations for the geographical location of the Shan Hai Jing in the Book of Mountains and Seas, but also reveal what the ancient Chinese may have known about the wider world. Scholars have suggested that these descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas may be based on the ancient Chinese's exploration and imagination of the unknown world in the distance, or based on cross-cultural exchanges that have begun in ancient times. These discoveries are of great significance for understanding the Classic of Mountains and Seas and its place in ancient Chinese culture. It not only challenges our traditional view of the Classic of Mountains and Seas as merely a document of myths and legends, but also provides a new perspective for exploring the breadth and depth of geographical knowledge in the ancient world. The connection between the East Mountain Classic, in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, and the North American continent opens a new window for us to explore the ancient world and civilizational exchanges, revealing an ancient worldview that may span the Pacific. 3. Detailed correspondence between the Classic of Mountains and Seas and North American mountain ranges. Detailed investigation of the first vein. According to the description in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, the length of the first mountain range is about 1,000 kilometers and contains 12 major peaks. In his in-depth study of North American geography, American scholar Mertz found that this description is highly consistent with the geographical characteristics of the mountains in central North America. He carefully marked the locations of these 12 peaks on the map and compared the characteristics of each peak with the descriptions in the Book of Mountains and Seas. The results showed that the location, height and even the surrounding natural environment of the mountain peak were very similar to those recorded in ancient books. The exploration of the second vein. The length of the second mountain range is recorded as 320 kilometers, with 17 major peaks. This part of the research led Mertz to the western part of North America, specifically the Sierra Nevada mountains. Through precise geographical measurements and comparisons, Mertz found that this description in the Book of Mountains and Seas matched certain parts of the Sierra Nevada not only in the direction of the mountains, but also in the number and location of the peaks. It also showed amazing consistency. The discovery of the third vein. The third mountain range mentioned in Shan Hai Jing extends along the coast, from Alaska to Santa Barbara, California, with a total of 9 major peaks. This description led Mertz to examine the western coastline of North America, particularly the coast mountains along the Pacific Ocean. He found that the geographical features of these mountains corresponded in many details with the descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, especially in the distribution and geographical location of the peaks. Mertz's methodology. During the investigation, Mertz strictly followed the instructions of the Classic of Mountains and Seas to explore. He followed the guidance of the ancient books with almost literal fidelity. When the ancient said to go east 100 steps, he walked 100 steps east. When the ancient book said to turn left, he turned left. When the ancient book said to turn right, he also follow and turn right. This method allowed him to accurately trace and verify geographical descriptions in ancient books. Significance of results. Mertz's investigation results are not only generally consistent with the descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, but also achieve almost perfect agreement in many details. His research not only showed that the geographical locations described in the Classic of Mountains and Seas may be far outside China, but also showed that the ancient Chinese may have had in-depth knowledge and understanding of the distant world. Mertz's research provides a new perspective on our understanding of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, suggesting that this ancient book may not just be a geographical work about China, but may contain knowledge and understanding of a wider area of the ancient world. This discovery is not only of great significance for understanding ancient Chinese culture and history, but also provides new possibilities and perspectives for the study of ancient civilizations around the world. 4. Mertz's research process and findings. The starting point of Mertz's research. American scholar Mertz's exploration began by chance. He obtained an English translation of the Classic of Mountains and Seas. He was deeply attracted by this ancient Chinese geography work, especially its detailed descriptions of mountains and geographical features. Mertz noticed that some parts of the Classic of Mountains and Seas were strikingly similar to the geographical features of the North American continent that he was familiar with. From this, he embarked on an ambitious project, a field trip to North America to investigate the geographical descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Fieldwork methods and challenges. Mertz's method was to strictly follow the textual descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. He first identified key geographical features described in the book, such as the direction of mountains, the number and characteristics of peaks, the flow of rivers, etc., and then looked for possible corresponding locations on a map of North America. This process is challenging because many descriptions require a combination of interpretation and geographical knowledge, and some geographical features may have changed over thousands of years. Key discovery: the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada. After conducting in-depth research on the Eastern Mountain Classic, part of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, Mertz found that the mountains described in the book were highly consistent in many aspects with the Rocky Mountains and Sierra Nevada mountains in North America. In particular, the distribution, shape and relationship between the mountain peaks and the surrounding environment are consistent with the descriptions in the Book of Mountains and Seas. For example, certain peaks described in the Classic of Mountains and Seas have accurate correspondences in the Rocky Mountains. Details of the verification process. Merza's verification process is meticulous. He not only considered the general direction of the mountains and the location of the main peaks, but also paid attention to details such as the distance between mountains, the direction of rivers and the surrounding environment. Through field investigation and map analysis, he discovered a number of geographical features that were consistent with the descriptions in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. He even converted the ancient mileage units in the Classic of Mountains and Seas into modern weights and measures to further verify the accuracy of his description. Merza's conclusions and implications. After years of research, Merz came to a shocking conclusion. The Eastern Mountain Classic, part of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, may actually describe the geographical features of the North American continent. This discovery not only provides a new perspective for the interpretation of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, but also shows that the ancient Chinese may have had some knowledge of the wider world. Merza's research sparked a scholarly re-evaluation of the Classic of Mountains and Seas and possible cultural and geographical connections between ancient civilizations. Merza's investigation not only confirmed the striking agreement between the Classic of Mountains and Seas and North American geography, but also provided important evidence for understanding possible connections between ancient China and other parts of the world. His work breaks the traditional understanding of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, demonstrates the potential value of this ancient book as a map of the ancient world, and opens up new possibilities for us to understand the breadth and depth of the ancient world. 5. Merza's challenges and achievements. Facing doubts from academia. American scholar Merz faced major doubts and challenges from the academic community when exploring the similarities between the Classic of Mountains and Seas and North American geography. His theory, that the Classic of Mountains and Seas may describe geographical features far beyond China, particularly parts of the North American continent, was not initially widely accepted. Many scholars are skeptical of the idea of connecting this ancient Chinese text to North American geography. They believe that due to historical and cultural barriers, it is impossible for the ancient Chinese to have knowledge about the continent on the other side of the Pacific. Ways to overcome challenges. Faced with these doubts, Merz persisted in his research and adopted more rigorous scientific methods to verify his theory. Not only did he accurately compare the descriptions in the Book of Mountains and Seas with the mountains of North America on the map, he also visited these areas on the spot and collected a large amount of geographical, geological and ecological data to support his views. His research is interdisciplinary, combining knowledge from history, geography, ethnology and archaeology to ensure comprehensiveness and accuracy. Merza's major achievements. Merza's research work ultimately achieved remarkable results. His efforts not only revealed that the Classic of Mountains and Seas may describe a broader world, but also provided a new perspective for understanding the worldview of the ancient Chinese. His discovery challenged the traditional interpretation of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, and opened a new chapter for modern research on this ancient book. Influence on the study of the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Merza's work had a profound impact on subsequent research on the Classic of Mountains and Seas. His theories inspired scholars to conduct broader and deeper explorations of the geographical locations described in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. In addition, his research has prompted the academic community to rethink the spread of geographical knowledge and the interaction between civilizations in the ancient world. Merza's efforts and results demonstrated that even the most traditional documents may hide untapped global knowledge, stimulating new interest in and new ways of interpreting ancient texts. Merza's persistence and courage in the face of doubts and challenges in the academic world, as well as the achievements of his research, not only enriched our understanding of the Classic of Mountains and Seas, but also provided new insights into the study of ancient civilizations around the world. Perspectives and methods. His work is an example of cross-cultural research, demonstrating that persistent and innovative research can reveal new dimensions of history, even in the face of doubt. 6. The theory that Bering Land Bridge connects Eurasia. In geology, The Bering Land Bridge, continuous Eurasian continent theory means that during the last ice age, due to a large amount of water being locked by glaciers, the global sea level was low, so that the current Bering Strait area was once a piece of land, known as the Bering Land Bridge. This landmass connected present-day Russia and Alaska, allowing ancient animals and humans to migrate from Asia to the North American continent. Evidence of human migration. Archaeological evidence shows that humans did use this land bridge to migrate between the two continents. According to existing archaeological discoveries, humans migrated from Asia to the North American continent through this land bridge about 10,000 to 15,000 years ago. This is considered to be one of the main ways for humans to enter the Americas. These early immigrants were the ancestors of the native peoples of North America. The flaws of modern cognition. However, it should be noted that modern people's thinking, vision, and even cognition are very flawed. We have no way of knowing the geographical changes that occurred 20,000 years ago. Modern humans are restricted by changes in the Pacific Ocean, volcanoes, crust, and geographical environment. From today's perspective, we can explore how the ancients crossed the Pacific Ocean and even proposed the use of air flight, sea navigation, and other technologies. It's like looking at it from today's perspective as a mountain, but 10,000 years ago that place was a vast ocean. Is it not right to use modern people's vision, thinking and cognition to view and explore the geographical mountains and rivers of 10,000 years ago in isolation? In The Classic of Mountains and Seas, the ancient Chinese could the numbers of peaks, mileage, mountains, rivers, flora and fauna, and other features are recorded in such detail that they are by no means based on fiction or imagination. For example, it is recorded in Dong Shan Jing and Hai Dong Jing of Shan Hai Jing. The first range is 1,000 kilometers long and has 12 major peaks. The second range is 320 kilometers long, with a total of 17 major peaks and 3,459 peaks. The third range is the coastal range, which runs from Alaska to the Santa Claus Mountains in California. Bala, a total of 9 peaks. In fact, the most primitive way of migration for ancient people was walking. If the Bering Land Bridge was 20,000 years ago, you could walk across it. The ancient Chinese walked to North America on their feet. It is precisely because of walking that the ancient Chinese sages could experience it personally, and the records in The Classic of Mountains and Seas are so detailed and specific. 7. Ancient civilization and technological level. The advanced nature of ancient civilizations, including ancient Chinese civilization, did show a high degree of development in some aspects, such as astronomy, mathematics, engineering, and other fields. But this is not directly equivalent to possessing high-tech capabilities in the modern sense. The achievements of ancient civilizations were often achieved within their historical and cultural context. Source of detailed figures. The specific numbers and descriptions mentioned in The Classic of Mountains and Seas come from the combination of ancient people's observation of the natural environment, myth creation, and cultural imagination. Without the support of science and technology, ancient people observed and recorded the natural world in very detailed and accurate ways, especially in terms of geography, animals, and plants. It really makes future generations admire and respect him greatly. Limitations of archaeology in history. Although modern science has made progress in many aspects, archaeology and history still have their limitations when studying ancient civilizations. The specific descriptions in the ancient book, The Classic of Mountains and Seas, are consistent with modern discoveries. This can only be the result of ancient people's observation of the natural world. There is a lot of evidence that ancient Chinese people personally arrived in the Americas. This shocked later generations of archaeologists and historians. There are many unsolved mysteries waiting for archaeologists and historians to decipher. Cultural exchange and dissemination. Cultural exchange and the transmission of knowledge in the ancient world may have been more complex than we realize. Some of the detailed descriptions in The Classic of Mountains and Seas may be knowledge spread through ancient trade routes, cultural exchanges, or other means. In general, These specific descriptions in The Classic of Mountains and Seas are still full of mystery, and their authenticity and origin are still important topics for academic discussion. Despite various theories and hypotheses, much archaeological evidence shows that ancient Chinese people personally arrived in the Americas and had a highly technological civilization. It is believed that with the support of archaeology and history, future research may provide more answers to these mysteries.